Hello, it's Caitlin, and today we're going to make some folding fans. Okay, so we're going to make two fans today. The first is very well documented. I'm going to copy an original, and so there's going to be white fan sticks, and then the leaves, which are the silk part, is going to be alternating colors in blue and yellow. So it's blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow. And on top of those, I'm going to put some swans down. So I am copying an original fan for that. I have no issues with that being, correct or whatever. So easy documentation on that one. The second one, I'm going to take a slight leap of faith, and yeah. So I'm going to do basically the same thing, but instead of swans, I'm going to do peacock feathers. I'm going to do blue and green instead of blue and yellow. There is a fan that is similar that's in the Met that was dated 1820 to 1840, which is earlier than what I'm doing. I'm doing 1850 to 1860. And I can't find a fan for my time period, an extant one, that is what I want to do. However, I do portray, when I do living history, first person, which granted isn't very often, but when I do, I portray a lady by the name of Nettie Gross, and Nettie grew up on a plantation that raised peafowl. And her brother writes in his memoirs that they used peacock feathers for fans. Now, the way he was describing it almost seems more like in the dining room, like the fans you sometimes see at plantations to kind of keep the flies off and to kind of get some air movement throughout dinner and that sort of thing. That seems to be more what he's describing. I also know they use peacock feathers in house decorations and that sort of thing. So I'm going to take a slight leap of faith to say we're going to use them as some fashion accessories. And I'm going to use it in my first person just to kind of talk about the character and the homestead. So like pulling my fan out is going to catch somebody's eye because it's hopefully going to be really pretty. And so, oh, I got my beautiful fan. Yeah, these peacock feathers come from the peacocks that are on my plantation. Leando, let me tell you about my home. So kind of use it as a talking point, I suppose. But peacock feathers were used in fans. There's some slight documentation of that, but not in folding fans. There's some fixed fans. There's one, I think that's in Peterson's, that's a fixed fan, so it's like a stick and then an oval of fabric, I believe, that's embroidered, I think, and then it has peacock feathers around it. There's some fire screens that used pheasant feathers, but they said or other wild game bird feathers, so that could easily be translated to peacocks. So yeah, some of those type things, the fixed fans, kind of size of things, were using peacock feathers at the time. So I don't think it's a giant leap of faith to say if we're using them in fixed fans, we'd also be using them in folding fans, but there's just not that solid documentation there. But given my character, knowing they raised peafowl, knowing they used the feathers, that they are very proud of their heritage and represented their plantation very well, I'm going to do it for my character in my circumstance. And so I'm only saying that because I really don't want this to become a thing within the living history reenacting community, that someone sees the video and starts making them and uses them for other situations, because until we find other originals or we have solid documentation for a particular character, it really shouldn't be a thing. So I'm going to make it up to use it as a talking point, and because I have that slight bead of evidence that it may have been done. So yeah, I suppose with all that being said, we can go ahead and make some fans. So it's getting kind of late, so I think what I shall do tonight is paint the fan sticks, and I shall see you tomorrow once that is done. Alright, so it is the next morning, and I spent most of yesterday afternoon dealing with a broken fridge, and then between that, painting sticks. And so this is what the sticks look like now. They are whitish cream on the outside and gold on the interior. I found an original that was white with gold accents, and this seemed the most logical way to give it a gold accent. And the exterior, I think these are called guards, is the official term for them, but they're gold on the outside and white on the inside. So those are my sticks now. I think the gold will bring out the richness in the peacock feathers extremely well, so I'm excited to see how that looks when it's all done. My next step is I'm going to cut rectangles, actually, to be the fan leaves, the silk part. So this is about 2 3/4 inches tall. I know I want them, fairly wide. I'm not going to cut them into shapes yet. I'm going to cut giant rectangles, and then when I get them all glued on, at like one of the last steps, I'm going to cut them into the shape that I want. So I think what I'm going to do, I think just because it's 2 3/4, I think I'm going to make it 4 inches tall, give me plenty of extra space, and 3 inches wide. So I'm going to need 12 blue ones and 12 green ones. I have a whole bunch of little rectangles. So here's all my blue ones and all my green ones. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to starch each piece very heavily. So I have my starch here. This is I buy the big gallon bottle from Walmart, and then mix it half and half with water. So it's a very heavy starch. It's not what you buy in the container to already spray. And this is what I usually use for this type of thing, to starch stuff. And so, yes, I'm going to starch. These are pretty light silks. They're plain blue silk. They're light taffeta, but they're very, very fine and light. So they're going to need some heavy starching. I'm going to starch each piece, and then I'll see you back here. Pieces are starched. So, yep, 12 of each. I think what I'm going to do next is glue them or sandwich this between 2 of them. That's my understanding what would happen next. So I contacted the people I got the sticks from several months ago, maybe a year ago. I think it was the last time I made the other fans. And they said this is what they use for their fans. Sobo, Premium, Craft, and Fabric Glue. So I have a brush, and I'm going to brush it on, sandwich this between, and then we're going to let all the sticks dry fully before we start cutting things. Feathers are in. So yeah, that's done. I think that a next step I'm going to do is go ahead and attach them here at the pivots. And I wasn't sure exactly how to do that because I didn't know if I wanted to make it all the way flat, like 180-degree half circle, or less than that. And then I remembered that I actually took a class over last summer at Corsets and Cravats, given by Ann Maddox, about fans, and that I have a giant, lovely book given by the Corsets and Cravats Committee that actually has all the class information in it. So I was able to find my class page, and turns out the full open angle is mostly not open to 180 degrees. Most commonly you'll see 165 to 175 degrees. So I think I like it a little bit more like this. I also like because it doesn't have any space between the feathers. So I do like that quite a lot, and I think that'll work very nicely. So yes, I think what I'm going to do right now is attempt to attach the pivots, and I have several pieces for that. I wasn't sure quite what to get, but I grabbed some earring things that have little balls at the end, which I think will keep it in. I noticed some fans have little bone bits, so I have these little bone beads that I bought on Etsy. So I'm going to do the little gold ball, bone bit, and then put these all in order. And then on the very back, I'm not sure how I'm going to finish it off. I might do a loop kind of to attach it and then put a tassel that way. I also have some of this where I could make one of these. So I think I'm going to look at some more originals real quick to see what is most common, whether this is normal or an abnormal thing to use. So that is put together now, and I think it's adorable. So that's kind of what that looks like right now. I'm going to put a tassel there later because all the ones that I saw, they had a tassel hanging from this. But I think right now I'm going to attach these pieces because right now they're not attached up here. And I have looked at several originals that were falling apart because those are the best ones to see how they were put together. And it looks like they are attached with this little tiny stitch right around where the end of the, kind of where the widest point of this is, and right next to the rib here. and then the next sleeve would just barely cover it so you didn't see the stitch. So I have some silk buttonhole twist actually. It's just silk thread. I have it in black because I don't have it in blue or green. And I think it's going to go with both colors pretty well. And it's going to be hidden anyway. So I'm going to figure out how to do this. Fan number 1 is done, and I love it. It is gorgeous. The tassel turned out really well. Not too thrilled, I suppose, with the fact the green isn't the exact shade as the green on the fan, but you know, does it really matter? No. I actually started making the tassel, and then I had to stop for a second because I was like, wait, were there 2 thread colored tassels? Because all I remember seeing was the single colored tassels. So it took me a while to find a 2-colored fan with a tassel, because a lot of times the tassels will deteriorate, and so they're not on the fans that are in the museums. But I finally found an original fan that still had its tassel, and yes, the tassel was 2-toned. So I was able to do it that way. I don't know what I would have done otherwise. I suppose could find some gold thread, made a gold tassel, which would have worked fine, but I kind of like the blue and the green. So yeah, I think it's time to start on the blue and yellow fan. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start cutting those pieces out. I'm going to cut them a little bit larger, partially because the sticks are longer. Yeah, sticks are much longer. So yeah, I think I'm going to figure that out and then start cutting them out, and I will see you once they're cut out and starched. Alrighty, so that is all starched up and they're nice and stiff. So I think what I'm going to do now is go ahead and put them onto the sticks like I did last time, except for I'm not going to glue beyond the end of the stick here, or this is the rib actually. This is the stick part and this is the rib, if I remember correctly from the book I just read or skimmed. So then I'm going to put my feathers on top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So that's the next day. They are all cut. I don't think I talked about patterning last time, but basically there is no real trick to it. All I did was take a piece of paper that was a rectangle about as wide as I wanted it to be and this tall, folded it in half, and then made some scallops. And so making sure the widest point is in the middle so I can cover the stitches that's going to be used to hold them together. And then I have a pretty pattern piece. So yeah, there's no real trick to that. But I am going to show you how I'm adding the feathers. So I have this lovely little boa that's just fluff. It's a fluff boa, not with actual feathers. and it's going to mimic our swan's down. So I'm going to take the piece, open it up. I'm putting glue on both the top and bottom halves. That way I don't have to I put glue on the feathers this time, because that was a little difficult. So just put glue all around it. And I'm just like plucking floof, basically, and just sticking it in there. If it looks a little thick, you just take it out. You can move it around a little bit if you like. There. So yeah, floof at the end of a feather, or floof at the end of a fan. There we go. And there will be floof all over the room, is what I'm already finding out. Okay, do a blue one. You know, it's kind of hard to get real swans down now. If you have access to real swans down, you can, you know, use the real stuff too, but this should work and look good. So yes, I shall finish the rest of these, and then I will see you back when I'm done with this. Alright, I just have to pause and show you how many feathers are on the floor of my sewing room. And there's many, many more in the air, actually. But yeah, it is done. It's Sleeping Puppy Dog. But yeah, it's here. So yeah, feathers are all in. One thing I will say, if anyone's doing anything similar at home, paint all the way up the stick, because you can tell where I stopped painting. It wasn't noticeable in the other one because the other one had dark silk, but with this light silk, you can tell. Hopefully though, I'm planning on having most of the stick covered by the other leaf part, so shouldn't be a big deal, but I'm going to go ahead and put all this together. Okay, so I thought it'd be a good idea to show you how I sew them together. I've already finished the two that we've been working on, but while I was figuring things out, I decided to go ahead and take two fans I had made previously that weren't made as well, and redo them in some areas. So like on the very bottom, oops, you can't see that. Made this, fixed that, now I know what I'm doing. This one is a spangled fan, so I put lots of little pretty sequins on it. So these are gold sequins. And if you're making your own sequin fan, basically what I think I've seen on originals is they are put on after the leaf's already made, and essentially it's just usually on one side. I can't see that either. So like on a leaf, one side is spangled and the other side is left blank. So on the back, there's where the spangles are attached, but it's hidden on the back by the leaf behind it. So essentially they're just circles. I saw some squares or some diamonds. Saw a few leaf-shaped ones, but they weren't anything similar to what we can find nowadays as far as leaf shape. So I opted for circles. I did a very simple pattern. Next time I'm going to do something a little bit more elaborate. However, they're just attached with two stitches essentially. I think you could also do three, just one across from each other. And I just jumped around the thread if you can't see it. But enough of that. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I have a nice long thread here. It's annoying to have to start over. So I'm going to start at the, if you're holding the fan right side up, you're going to start on the right side. And I'm going to start on the very end of the fan in the middle. So right where the stick is, I'm going to start from the bottom in the middle, so where it should be theoretically the largest and widest scallop. I'm going to poke it through as close to the stick as I possibly can. There's a little knot on the end of my thread. And I'm going to go back down very close to it, maybe a millimeter or two, just trying to, millimeter or two, trying just to make the stitches as small as possible. Okay, and that's it for this one. So we're on the bottom. I'm going to bring it over to this side. I'm going to bring this over. So it's me backwards for y'all, sorry. And I'm going to go onto the top of the next leaf. So here's the leaf I was just on. My thread is here on the bottom. And I'm going to go here. So I'm going to figure out where I want this to end, because I want the stitches to be behind it. And I want them on this one to kind of be where the top of the sticks here are just about touching. So I'm just going to hold it there, lift up the leaf, kind of figure out something. I'm trying to end them so wherever my, it's going to be different based on your sticks, but wherever my rib ends is about where I'm putting my stitch. So I'm going to go down, pull it all the way through, go back up in the same-ish spot, and now I can pull it very nicely to make sure it's where I want it to be, make sure it's nice and tight without pushing the ribs too far over. And then I'm going to go back down. Of course it's black on black, so I'm having a hard time seeing. And I go up and down a few times, maybe like 2 or 3, just to make sure it's going to stay and not move. And you're going to want to end on the bottom. So there's my thread on top, and there it is on the bottom. Okay, so now we can do the next one. So I can take the next leaf over. I'm going to start from the top, so about where I thought I was going to need to be. Go on the top, go, and then come back up. And now I can move things to where I think they need to be. Okay, I like that. I'm going to pull that taut. I'm going to fold this back and allow myself to stitch a few times. Fans are done. So here is the yellow and blue one with this little matching tassel. Folds up very nicely. Unfolds. I was able to hide the ribs, so you only see like every once in a while you see them, but it's not the first thing you notice. So I'm okay with how that turned out. Just know if you're making your own and you're using a light silk, you might want to actually paint all the way up the rib and not just stop at the sticks. You know, I learned something so that maybe someone else can learn from my mistake here. Of course, we did the pink one, so it looks better. Did the black one that has the lovely sequin work on it, the spangles. They were not called sequins in the period, they were called spangles. So you'd have a spangled fan. But yeah, this is the simplest pattern I could find on an original. The rest of them are very ornate, gorgeous, and one day, yes, I want to reproduce that. But for my first attempt at a sequin fan or a spangled fan, I wanted something a little more simple. So that's what I did. I used the same gold thread that I used to attach the spangles on the tassel. So we have a lovely little gold tassel. That turned out really well. And of course the glorious peacock fan, which I am insanely proud of and look forward to using. I think it's just going to be, it's gorgeous. So, you know, 2 days ago I had 2 passable-ish fans that were functional, but now I have 4 really good fans that will go with, between the 4 of them, all my outfits. And they are extremely pretty and extremely useful here in Texas. So thank you so much for joining me. I will link in the description the seller of the fan sticks who make theirs off an original. And yeah, they have some completed fans as well. So if you don't want to make your own fan, they do sell completed fans, including ones that have feathers in them. So yeah, I would suggest that. But if you want to make your own, go for it, and they have those kits as well. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned something, and have a great day.